By now, you have the following prerequisites met: your Google Cloud Platform projects, your BigQuery datasets, a cloud-built service account with the right permissions, and if you're deploying into separate source and target projects, please check the documentation. At least one storage bucket in the same region as the datasets in BigQuery, where the cloud-built service account can create, delete, and write files for logs, DAGs, and pipelines, and any integration prerequisites as documented for each workload, such as marketing or SAP. The first step is to clone the GitHub repository. In this series, I will assume you're deploying all sources from the Cortex Data Foundation into a single source and target project. I am using the Cloud Shell because it has everything I need pre-installed. I use git clone with recurse submodules so that the Data Foundation deployer and the submodules with the content are cloned. After the cloning is finished, I will start configuring the deployment. The key file here is config.json /config. This file drives the execution of every script and submodule. We will be using our real data from our source systems, so I will set the test data to false. We said we wanted to deploy all of the workloads, so I will keep all of these values as true. In the future, as more workloads are incorporated, they will also appear here. If you wanted to deploy only Salesforce through our provided scripts, you would set everything else to false. Data Mesh by default will only deploy the descriptions, and we surely want them. You will find more information about how to take advantage of the rich set of features in this Data Mesh client for Cortex in the description of this video. The next flag is Turbo Mode. If set to false, this flag creates one individual separate cloud-built step per BigQuery artifact. This is much slower but useful to pinpoint errors when deploying for the first time in your own replicated datasets, as it will allow you to single out field mismatches between what Cortex data models expect and what is available in your system. The source project ID may or may not be the same as the target. If we go back to the original landscape diagram, the source project is where the technical projects will reside, and the target is where the business or reporting facing datasets will live. In this case, they will be the same, so I can leave the target empty and it will be assumed to be the same as the source. This target bucket is where all DAGs will be moved at the end of their generation steps. The location can be a multi-location, like US or EU, or a region, like US Central 1. This location needs to match the location in the BigQuery datasets as well as in the storage buckets for logs and DAGs. Languages and currencies affect the where clauses of the data models from specific workloads. I recommend looking at the documentation to understand the impact on workloads like SAP, as this is likely to evolve in future releases. Unless you're generating your own test harness, you can ignore the test data project parameter. The K9 datasets contain cross-workload, reusable components like time dimensions or views that join two separate workloads like Google Ads and SAP. If these datasets do not exist, they will be created for you. Data Mesh will only deploy descriptions by default and has its own documentation to help you create a data mesh into Dataplex and apply policies. Please see the link in the description for more information. And now we go into each specific workload. These sections will grow as we add more data sources and workloads, so it is always a good idea to look at the specific documentation for each one of them. Starting with SAP, if your tool lands data in an append always form, you will need the predefined scripts to run a merge operation into the CDC processed dataset. Conversely, if your tool updates records as it writes, your CDC and raw datasets will be the same and you will not need these scripts or DAGs scheduled in Composer. Salesforce provides APIs for consumption of data, so our ingestion scripts provide a mechanism to fetch the latest records and updates every 15 minutes. By default, you will get the replication scripts merging the update directly into the raw dataset. And some views will generate a mapping between what is landed and what is in the reporting dataset. The ingestion scripts require some configuration to access the API, so please check the documentation to complete this. Marketing data sources use different mechanisms for integration, including templates in Dataflow. Please check the links in the description for this video for more details on this and any upcoming workload that we may add after the creation of this video. In BigQuery, we have the necessary empty raw and CDC datasets, as these will not be created by the deployer. The exception as of the date of making this video is SAP, which needs the data replicated in raw with the same table names and data types as they exist in SAP. On the contrary, reporting and K9 datasets are considered managed by the framework. These will be created by the deployer if they do not exist. Please check the integration section for your selected workloads, as there may be special requirements. You will find some useful links on the configuration of specific workloads in the description of this video.